Welcome to a new episode of our channel. Today we will talk about the Nile River, the longest river in the world. The Nile River is the source of life and prosperity for many of the countries that line its banks, providing water for drinking, irrigation, and industrial use. The Nile River also provides opportunities for fishing, transportation, and tourism. In this episode, we will learn about the history of the Nile River and its impact on the various civilizations that were established on its banks. We will also discuss the challenges facing the Nile River, such as pollution and climate change. So stay with us until the end to learn more about the Nile River. The importance of the Nile River. The ancient Egyptian civilization relied on the Nile River for agriculture. The Nile River was the main water source for agriculture in ancient Egypt. The river's annual floods would inundate farmland, providing soil fertility for growing crops such as wheat, barley, and legumes. Ancient Egyptian farmers were adept at agriculture, developing advanced techniques such as irrigation, drainage, and irrigated agriculture. People also settled along its banks in order to grow crops. After that, agriculture developed after the invention of the first plow, and increasing food production and achieving self-sufficiency provided sufficient time for development in other fields, such as the arts, which increased creativity and strengthened civilization. The Nile River is one of the most important means of transportation. The ancient Egyptians used boats to carry goods and people between cities and villages. They also used boats for fishing and travel. The river basin was pivotal to the development of civilization in the region. The Nile River is currently the largest home to the largest African crocodiles and various other animals known in this ecosystem, such as hippos, turtles, wildebeest, baboons, frogs, and hundreds of species of birds. The Nile River is also considered a major transportation route for people and goods. Hydroelectric projects and dams have been developed along the river's course, so that electrical power is provided to homes and industries in the region. How large is the Nile River? The Nile River is the longest river in the world, as it extends from its furthest stream in Burundi, with a length of 6,695 kilometers. Its main source is Lake Victoria in east-central Africa. It consists of three main streams as follows: the Blue Nile at Bara, which originates in the highlands of Ethiopia. The total area of the Nile River basin represents 10.3% of the area of the African continent. How many countries does the Nile River pass through? The Nile River passes through 11 countries, including Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Kenya, Ethiopia, Eritrea, South Sudan, Sudan, Egypt. These 11 countries concluded an agreement with each other to preserve the Nile River. What is the Nile River Basin Agreement? The Nile Basin Agreement was held in 1999 AD, and it is an intergovernmental partnership between all the countries of the basin. This is because the presence of 11 countries sharing the Nile River water resource may cause some conflicts, so this agreement provides promoting regional peace and water security, sharing social and economic benefits, assisting member countries with irrigation and drainage, flood control and early warning systems, and various hydropower projects, sustaining the waters of the Nile River in a collaborative manner. Causes of pollution of the Nile River? One of the causes of pollution in the Nile River is the factories that discharge heavy metals into the river, in addition to dangerous chemicals, and this poses a threat to human health, animals and agriculture. Agriculture is affected by this, as bacteria and minerals in the water hinder the growth of plants that are irrigated with it, especially in the Nile Delta region, where the percentage of pollution is higher than others. Also, the increase in the percentage of lead and ammonia gas in the river causes the death of fish and other living organisms. Organic pollutants such as fertilizers and pesticides, they are one of the causes of Nile pollution. According to one study conducted in 2016, it was found that the average percentage of chlorofluoropesticides in the water of the Nile River was higher than the normal percentage listed by the World Health Organization. Agricultural drainage. The main pollutants coming from agricultural drainage into the Nile River are salts, pesticide residues, pathogens, and organic and inorganic toxic pollutants. Oil pollution. One study has proven the presence of a large amount of oil in the Nile River, and its concentration is greater in the areas where oil is distributed, ship parking areas, shipyards, the electricity, and areas where factories are concentrated. Other causes of pollution of the Nile River: increasing the population rate and thus increasing water consumption. Radioactive waste. Sewage from hotels and neighborhoods near the river. Dumping waste into the river and cleaning animals near it. Throwing animal carcasses into the river. Egypt's efforts to solve the pollution of the Nile River. The Ministry of Environment is making a lot of effort and coordinating with all ministries and concerned authorities to reduce pollution on the Nile River and waterways, through periodic follow-up and inspection of facilities that have direct and indirect drainage into bodies of fresh water. The state is carrying out extensive campaigns to inspect industrial facilities that drain the Nile River, whether directly or indirectly. There are stations to monitor the quality of water in the Nile River in the governorates of Aswan, Luxor, Quina, Sohag. The doctrine of the ancient Egyptians and the Nile. The Egyptians celebrated the Feast of the Fulfillment of the Nile on the 15th of August every year, as this day coincided with the beginning of the flood season, in ancient Egypt. The fulfillment of the Nile was named because of the good things it carried with it. Therefore, they sanctified the Nile and held a great celebration for it during the month in which the Nile floods, bringing with it silt and water. The ancient Egyptians used to throw sacrifices and gifts to it to celebrate its loyalty in a great procession, with the king and senior statesmen leading it as evidence of their gratitude for this great Nile. There was a legend associated with the Feast of the Nile, which is that the ancient Egyptians used to offer the god of the flood, known as the god Habi, or Happy, on his feast a beautiful girl, who was decorated and then thrown into the Nile as an offering. The Egyptian civilization was a sophisticated civilization. Human sacrifices for any deity, no matter how high its status, have not been known throughout the ages. Likewise, there is a river god among the ancient Egyptians, but there was a god who embodied the flood, which was the god Habi. The Egyptian did not worship the river in its abstract form, but he sanctified it because it was a basic cause of prosperity and fertility of the land. In the Roman era, the river had a god, Nilus. The height of the Nile level was measured in cubits, and 16 children were usually depicted on the statues of the god Nilus, symbolizing the number of cubits needed for the ideal flooding of the Nile. The statue of Nilus is one of the unique pieces in the Greek Museum. Roman